Welcome to the Revalue Podcast, where we talk about everything reselling and making money on the secondhand market. My name is Jake. I go by JRideFlips on social media. And today I wanted to talk to you guys about why the summer is the best time to learn about the platforms such as eBay and Poshmark, Mercari, Etsy, Amazon, and why it's the best time to grow our stores. I'm talking specifically about eBay, but this also applies to all the other platforms that I just mentioned. I want to talk about why we have the ability to grow our stores, how to do this organically, how to do it in the right way, and how to do it without losing capital, continue to pay our bills, and then really prepare for the best time of e-commerce and reselling, which is the end of quarter 3, all of quarter 4, and all of quarter 1. So I want to start off by talking about consumer cycles. The biggest consumer cycle is seasonality. So a couple of key things to understand when it comes to consumer cycles, which are consumers, buyers, consuming services, products, things that producers put out for people. So in this scenario, us sellers or the producers, we are producing items and in some cases even on eBay services, where the consumers, our buyers, are consuming or buying our products. The best time, the best season for consuming e-commerce such as eBay, Amazon, Etsy, Mercari is the end of quarter 3, which is in September, all throughout quarter 4, which is up until December, where we have the biggest holidays of the year, such as Thanksgiving and Christmas. People are buying more and more and more for other people. The biggest holiday tradition for Christmas is people buy presents for each other. A lot of people buy these presents new off of Amazon, and I've actually discovered that a ton of people buy used items to gift as presents on eBay, from eBay for Christmas, especially those vintage electronics or those vintage articles of clothing that you cannot buy brand new anymore. Another huge sales cycle is the one directly right after that, which is quarter 1. In the United States, the average person receives a tax refund, and the average person uses that tax refund to purchase things for themselves or their immediate family members. They just barely went through a cycle where they were buying a ton of items for other people. Now that they've gotten their tax refund, they've shifted to a mindset where they're buying things for themselves. So I usually have my best quarters and my best months from September to about April, because people are buying things for others and they're buying things for themselves. Then we come into quarter 2 and the beginning of quarter 3, which we are right in the middle of. We just barely finished quarter 2. A lot of our reselling brothers and sisters on e-commerce have fallen by the wayside. I'll be addressing that in a minute. And we are now in the beginning of quarter 3, where sales are still tough to come by because we aren't in those major cyclical times where people are buying for others and for themselves. Typically during quarter 2, is where people are continuing to spend money. The expenditure of money is something that never stops. It's just something that we do as a society. We love to spend the money we make. The majority of Americans and everyone in the world are taught or programmed or learn, not sure how it has come about, but we are programmed to pay bills. So if our bills are $3,000, we somehow find a way to pay our $3,000 bills. Then, if we have a job or we have a side hustle that gets an increase and all of a sudden we start making $4,000, our expenditures and bills soon become $4,000. Then if we start making $6,000 and $7,000, typically our bills and our expenditures catch up to be $7,000 or $8,000. So the point I'm getting to is, even though e-commerce as a whole slows down during these months, it doesn't mean every industry is slowing down. During the second quarter and the beginning of third quarter is typically what's called the travel season. More and more people are traveling for themselves. A lot of people do travel during the holidays. This is true. But then more people are taking their vacations to Hawaii and to Fiji and to Bali and to Europe and to all these destinations. So people are still continuing to spend money. It's just in a different place than e-commerce. Yes, e-commerce sales still continue, obviously. We're all still in business here and we're still making sales. But people are shifting their money to more of savings account and to expenditures in travel. My wife and I just recently went to Hawaii. Many of our extended family members and our friends are also traveling during this time. So the money is being put more into savings accounts and to vacationing than it is to buying personal items or gifts on eBay and Amazon. But there is a way to combat this, what's called summer slowdown. Many of us have heard about summer slowdown. It's not a myth, it's a real thing. Like I've been talking about with these consumer cycles, less and less people are spending money on e-commerce. And if you are completely focused on e-commerce sales, you're going to see a slowdown during this time of the year. So a way to combat summer slowdown is to sell items to people that are looking for experiences. People that are going to Hawaii still want to buy a Hawaii shirt for their trip. People who are traveling across the country in an RV want to buy a pair of Ray-Bans or Oakleys to keep the sun out of their eyes while they're driving. Same with people who are going to Europe, they just want some sunglasses. Some people may want that new fit, that new dress to go on vacation. So you want to focus on things that are catered to people going on vacations, and you will not see as drastic of a slowdown during Q2 and Q3 as you normally would. Another example of this is baseball season. I do very well during the spring, during the start of this slowdown, because I sell a ton of baseball bats, softball bats, and a ton of baseball and softball gloves and mitts. Because baseball and softball season start during the spring, across all ages, high school, middle school, seniors, rec leagues, they all start at about the same time once the sun starts to come out from behind the clouds and the snow. Once the snow starts melting, people are hitting balls with bats. So if you focus on these items, you're also going to have slower summer slowdown. Piggybacking off of that, you also want to be looking for golf clubs, golf tees, golf balls, range finders, things of that sort. Golf is an amazing category to sell in. It's what's called an evergreen item, which means it sells year round, but we see spikes during the spring and summer because more people have time for vacations and it's a lot warmer. So the majority of people don't want to be golfing in 16-degree weather, and you can't really golf when there's a foot of snow on the ground. But when that snow melts away, you're able to play a lot more golf. So this is a category that you guys can also focus on if you want to slow down your summer sales, to slow down your summer slowdown. Now, I wanted to address the summer slowdown within the community. We have an awesome community here in the resellers, the reselling platforms. You see it on Reddit, you see it in Discords, you see it on YouTube, on TikTok. A lot of people are very invested in this community, the reselling community. Now, recently on YouTube, there have been a lot of videos toward the negative side about how terrible eBay is, about how terrible reselling in general is, and about how this is a dying industry or how it's already dead. I respectfully disagree with the rhetoric. I am also very empathetic to the people that are struggling. I do realize and admit that sales are slower. Like we've talked about in the beginning of the podcast, this is the slowest time of the year for e-commerce. Therefore, you should expect a decrease in sales overall. Also, we are just coming off of the pandemic where more people were home, more people were shopping online because they couldn't shop in brick and mortar. More people had more time to be on their phone. More people were in a more depressed and anxious state, and they were able to cope with that with dopamine hits from purchasing things online. So sales across the board for the majority of sellers are down. That is a very real thing, and a lot of people are struggling to maintain profitability and to make a livelihood for themselves and their families. And to those that are especially struggling and having a really hard time, my heart truly does go out to those people. I really hope that you can get this figured out and you can continue to realize your dreams and to accomplish your sales goals. This is a very real thing. People are struggling. People are making less money than they ever have on e-commerce, and it's a very hard thing to watch and to experience. But the whole goal of this podcast and of my channel in general is to teach people how to make money on e-commerce, eBay specifically, selling used items specifically. And it's a place where I want to build the community of resellers, and I want to make it a more positive place overall. I am a champion for positive outlook. If you look for yellow cars, you will see yellow cars. If you create hell around you, hell will come and find you. So it's important to keep a positive perspective. I want to talk a little bit about maintaining positivity while also having a firm grasp on reality and circumstances. Like we've talked about over and over again already in this short podcast, it's a tough time to be selling right now, but it's not, there's still so much money to be made. There's so much money to be made in selling on eBay, and I want everyone to buckle down and to learn how to do this and to make a livelihood for themselves and their family. So these YouTube videos, these TikTok videos, these Facebook community posts, these Reddit posts, I want to address them in a very loving way, the best that I can. Especially this year, there's a spike during the summer of these videos for these obvious reasons that we've been talked about. If you held up e-commerce cyclical sales and then a chart of negative YouTube videos, you'll see a spike during quarter 2 and quarter 3, and that's just by psychological design. When people are making less money, there's more of a negative sentiment, and therefore there's more negative videos being pushed out, and more of those negative videos are being consumed at a higher rate. But I'm here to tell you guys that though it's hard, there's light at the end of the tunnel. There's light in the tunnel right now. You can be making sales right now, even during this slow time. And I want to now address the name of this podcast, which is Summer is the Best Time to Learn and the Best Time to Grow Your Store. If you can push past the anxiety and the stress of not selling as many items, it's a perfect time to be able to learn better packing methods, better ways to make sure that it gets to the customer on time and in a non-broken state, because instead of shipping out 12 items per day or 30 items per day or 4 items per day, now you're only shipping out 1 or 2 or 5 or 6 or 14. You have more time to actually take your time to learn what is the best way to package these items so that way they get there safely. And aside from that, you're also able to see, okay, this is the slowest selling time of the year, but what is still selling? If something is selling right now, it's definitely going to be selling during Christmas. So I need to double down on the things selling now, so that way I can have an even more explosive quarter 3, quarter 4, and quarter 1. During this time where you're only selling a few things a day when you're used to selling 10 or 12, you can see, okay, I'm noticing that Sony Walkmans are selling right now while the rest of my store is dead. So there must be something about Sony Walkmans that people are interested in, so I'm going to start looking for more Sony Walkmans. Oh, I'm noticing that even though my sales are slower right now, people are still buying this item, or this item, or this item. You can see, okay, every time that I get this Wi-Fi router, it doesn't matter what time of the year it is, it sells. So maybe I need to be looking for more Wi-Fi routers. I'm noticing that this thing sells over this thing. You're also going to notice things that are not selling whatsoever. And then you can see later down the line, wow, this didn't sell at all during the summer. Now we've made it through quarter 3, quarter 4, quarter 1, and I still have it. Maybe this isn't as hot of an item as I thought it was. Maybe it's not as desirable of an item as I thought it was. Or maybe I have this listed completely wrong or completely too high. Now that you're not shipping as many items out, you have the time to comb through your store, see what is selling, see what isn't. You have time to go back to your listings and see, oh, this title structure is wrong. I wonder what happens if I fix it. It may not sell right now because it's in the slower season, but now because I've fixed it, maybe once things start to pick up a little more, it will start to sell even quicker. Now you have the opportunity to look through and see, okay, this is the main reason why I don't recommend delist, relist. Every time you delist and relist an item, if you do it every 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, whatever you do, you can't see how long that item has been in your store, because now it's a new item and it says that it was launched on August 1st, even though it could have been launched on September 21st, 4.5 years ago. So delist, relist has a little bit behind it. People do see an increase in sales, especially when they make changes to their listing. But I don't like to do that because then I don't have the data of what is and isn't selling. So if you're constantly doing the delist, relist, it's getting a new date every time you post it, and you don't know if this has been in your store for 14 days, for 14 weeks, or for 14 months. So it's hard to keep track of. So a little side note there, that's why I do not do delist or relist in my store. I do a markdown strategy so I can see, okay, this item has been in my store for 60 days. This one has been in my store for 120 days. This one has been in my store for 240 days. Something is wrong. I'm also noticing that there's 6 other similar items that have been in my store for 200 plus days. I'm going to move away from these items and into these items that sell within 6 days, 10 days, 14 days. I'm going to look for those items more and look for these items less. Because again, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, it will shock you. If you look for yellow cars, you will find yellow cars. That's true for the negative. It's also true for the positive. So a lot of people, as I was saying that, was thinking, well, yeah, it would be awesome if I could find the items that sell within 6 days every single day, but I can't. And yeah, it is significantly harder to sell fast. It is significantly harder to find items that sell through significantly quicker. But I promise you, when you start looking for yellow cars, you find them. A lot of times, I've been doing this for a while, and I'll kind of get into grooves, or you could even call them ruts, where I only am looking for 5 to 15 items, and then I'll watch the Bearded Thrift Machine, and I'll be like, oh, I forgot wrenches sell for a ton of money. I need to start picking those up again. Or I'll be watching the Commonwealth Picker, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe I forgot how valuable the right plush can be. I gotta pick up a little bit of plush here and there. And we just get into these ruts where it's like, okay, well, I found a few things that are working for me, and I just keep nailing that in the coffin, but then I forget about these other things that could be selling. So because we have less time processing and shipping, we have more time to be doing research like this. One thing that I recommend is finding your favorite YouTubers, finding your favorite podcasters, and listening to them while you work. So that way you can always constantly be refreshing about the BOLOs you need to be looking for, about the systems you need to be using, about the policies and processes that you need to be implementing into your business, because we are creatures of forgetfulness. We forget things over and over and over again. That's one of the many reasons why I watch YouTube videos, because I forget about the plush with Kevin. I forget about the wrenches with the bearded thrift machine. So it's important to keep up on that. So when we're looking through our stores, it's important to be as logical as we can and as unemotional as we can. I know that's not super relatable for a lot of people, but if we want to make more money than we ever have, if we want to have more free time than we ever have, we need to be as logical and as business-minded as we can. So as we're looking through our duds, we need to realize what the duds actually are. A lot of times we really like to sell a certain thing, or we've heard a lot of positive things about certain brands, and so we pick them up thinking that they're going to sell no matter what, and a lot of times they don't. A clear example for that, for me, is the Duluth Trading Company. It's a clothing brand. It's a clothing brand. A few months ago, their shirts sold for me when I listed them within 10 days, which is extremely fast for clothing, especially men's clothing in particular. Recently, though, they've been selling significantly slower, and they've been selling for significantly less. So I have stopped buying more shirts, but I have been focusing more on their shorts. Shout out to Caleb Resells. He only does shorts here on YouTube. I've been trying to get him to do long form content. If you're watching this, get on it, man. He did a video about how he bought some Duluth shorts, and it reminded me, oh man, I have been avoiding Duluth because of their shirts, but then I looked up on eBay the solds, and their shorts are flying off the shelves for amazing prices, $25 to $40 per pair of shorts, and I can get them here in my area for $4. So I've been focusing on Duluth Trading Company shorts, and I've been making more money on eBay. Again, it's important to keep learning and keep learning and keep learning. But a little sidetracked there. So it's important that while we're combing through our eBay store, we need to not be emotionally attached to what we think sells. We need to be logically attached to what actually sells. So I would get out a pen and paper, and I would get out my desktop, and I would go to all of my listings, and I would sort longest listed, and then I would go to those items, and I would see, why is this still in my store? And I would write each item down on a notepad, and I would say, this item sucks. I would go to the sell-through rate and see, okay, this has a terrible sell-through rate, that's why. Or I would see, oh, this actually has a decent sell-through rate. Then I would look, oh, my title sucks. Or I would go to the sell-through rate and see, okay, this item is selling for $14.99 plus shipping. I have mine listed for $22.99 plus shipping. It's price. And I would go through, and I would do about 25 of these a day, 100 if you have more time. But go through your 25 longest standing listings and write down why they are not selling, and then fix them. And then you can go ahead and do delist, relist one last time if you'd like to on those terrible listings. But then I would start doing a markdown strategy instead, so you can see what items are actually sticking in your store and why they're sticking in your store. So quick breakdown of what I do for my markdown sales. I put everything into my store, and then everything that has been listed for 45 days, I mark down 15%. Then, if those listings are still in my store if those listings are still in my store 45 days later, so at 90 days, I mark them down an additional 5%. So now they're 20% off. 45 days after that, 25% off. 45 days after that, 30% off. Then I let that ride. And if they have been in my store for over 100 days at 30% off, I take them out of my store completely. I have a couple avenues where I can give them to other resellers and sell them to other resellers for like super cheap, like 50 cents or $1, and just explain to them, hey, these weren't selling on eBay, so maybe you can put them back up on eBay and sell them better than I did, or maybe you can take them to a flea market, but these are like my really low-end items. They always understand that, and we have a good deal worked out for that as well. But go through your items and kill them all that are not selling. There are reasons why your items are not selling, and it's not eBay's fault. It's usually our faults. So we have to be mature enough, humble enough, and logical enough to say, why are these listings not selling? And sometimes you have the perfect listing, it just isn't selling because of these consumer cycles, or because of a downturn economy, or because people have just kind of lost interest in that item for a period, and there's not much you can do, but there's almost always something that you can do. So go through your stores, be ruthless, and ask yourself, why are these items not selling? Really learn why they are not selling and figure out how to sell them. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. This is actually a paid members only podcast for those of you that have joined the channel. I'm just putting this out there this week to everyone to spark some interest, to see if anyone would like to continue to listen to these podcasts. So this one's going out to the public. If you would like to listen to the podcast, you can join the memberships below. Any membership at any level will get you access to the weekly podcast that I record on Wednesdays. Whether it's, if you want to just sign up for the $2.99 tier or any tier after that, just as a thank you, every tier gets you access to the podcast. Now, the second part of the title of this video is Grow Your Store. So for an example, I have been listing 25 items a day since January. And during January and February, I was selling on average 27 items a day. So my store was shrinking by 2 items every day. Fast forward to now, I've actually scaled back to 20 because I'm putting more time into my YouTube and TikTok and content creation. But 20 is still a great number to be posting every single day. 140 items a week are going into my store. And now I'm only selling about 16 a day. So pretty drastic decrease. But because I am continuing to list, now instead of my store shrinking by 2 items per day, it's actually growing by 4 items per day. And if I continue to only put quality items in my store, it will positively grow because I'm selling 16, I'm putting in 20. Some days I only sell 13, but I still put in 20. Some days I do sell 21, 22, but I still just put in 20. Overall, I'm growing by 4 items a day, every single day. Eventually, the summer slowdown will melt away, will dry away, I guess, because it's summer. The snow will fall, people will be in their houses more, people will be buying for others, people will be buying for themselves, and then my store has grown and grown and grown all summer long, and now I am making more money than I ever have in my life because I was patient, because I fought away the insecurities, the anxiety, and the stress, and I just continued to keep posting quality items into my store, knowing that the sales cycle that I was preparing for was right around the corner. I promise if you guys continue to keep putting interesting, high quality, high sell-through rate items in your store, you're gonna sell a ton for Q4 and Q1, and it's gonna be awesome. So keep listing those quality items. Now I wanna dive into what is a quality item real quick. And a quality item during the summer is different than what it is during the winter. And I don't think that concept has ever really been talked about on eBay, on YouTube and Reddit, stuff like that. So I want to talk about that here. The average good seller will tell you you need to look for things that have a 100% sell-through rate, which means if there are 15 listed, 15 have sold in the last 90 days. If there are 1,800 listed, 1,800 have sold in the last 90 days, right? That is much more obtainable when you're looking at items on December 11th than they are when you're looking at items during August 11th. When you are researching items on August 11th, it's been the slowest 90 days of the year, and so obviously the sell-through rate is going to be slower. I see people pass on items all the time that are only at that have 200 listed and only 106 sold, and they're like, oh, that's a slow sell-through rate. It's like, well, it's actually a pretty decent sell-through rate. We've just gone through 90 days of terrible summer, and I promise you, if you look at that same item on December 11th, it might actually only have 89 listed and 300 sold. So a lot of times when we're comping items during the summer, we're actually not giving the items enough credit because they sell significantly faster during the winter than they do during the summer. Now, in a vacuum, which means disregarding all other environment and data and circumstances, you want to look for things that have a fast sell-through rate, but in my opinion, I think it's okay to give a little more slack to items during the summer when you're researching because statistically, they just have a slower sell-through rate during the summer. And if you can find things that have an amazing sell-through rate during the summer, they're going to have an even better sell-through rate during the winter. Now, I don't want to be misconstrued or unheard. I am not saying, oh, this is a time to list everything, including bad items, because Jake said, oh, well, items that have a slower sell-through rate now will have a faster sell-through rate in the winter. That's not the case. If you list heaps of garbage in your store, you're not going to have more sales during Q3 and Q4 and Q1 because you're not listing things that people want. You're going to need to learn how to find and source items that people will actually buy now and in the future. So you want to continue to put better items in your store every single day. And that's where the first half of the podcast comes in, learning about your store and then growing your store. You got to learn what items are selling best before you just start putting everything in your store and site. This Expo marker, I would not put this in my store. It's used. It probably only has a few days of life left, and there's only one of them. No one is going to buy this for any amount of money because it's worthless. But some people would say like, oh, well, Expo has a good sell-through rate. I just looked it up on eBay. You have to make sure you're not just going by Expo. You didn't search green Expo used marker. You searched Expo markers and a bunch of new ones popped up that have an incredible fast sell-through rate. But a used single Expo marker is not going to sell for anything. Don't list things just for the sake of listing things. Don't list things just for the sake of growing your store. You want to be growing your store in a good way, in a healthy way, so that way you actually get the sales that you want during these faster quarters. If you keep selling things that you did your research on these items, you found the ones that aren't selling, and if you continue to just put those non-selling items in your store, you're not going to have a better quarter four. You'll still probably have a better quarter four because you do have items in there. You have more items in your shop. But you're not going to have a significantly better quarter four because you're not putting in significantly better items. So it's important to put in quality over quantity. I'm the kind of guy that says, why not quality and quantity? But in order to have both of those things, primarily you have to have quality. Because you can put in 50 terrible items and you'll get sales. But why not put in 50 really good items? And again, people will say, well, what if I can't find 50 really good items? Find as many good items as you can. Continue to learn and learn over time, and you will find more and more quality items to put in your store. But this is truly a time where we can change our lives. This is the time where people are falling out. This is the time where people are complaining and having a really hard time. And this is the time where you can separate yourselves from the competition. I want to address something that a lot of people are talking about, and that is glitches on the eBay site. This is a really hard thing. Again, I want to be super empathetic. I want to be understanding to people's situations and tell you that sucks. It really does suck. I really am sad that people are struggling with glitches and with slow sales and things like that. But I want to tell you guys about a story that changed my life. A lot of you guys know, and if you're new here, I did 5 years of door-to-door sales. I went to Columbus, Ohio, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, spent some time in Covington, Louisiana, Indiana. I went to a lot of different places. I would go knock on people's doors and I would say, hey, there's a bunch of people in your neighborhood getting their pest control taken care of. If we can squeeze you in with your neighbors while we're already here, we're just taking care of those ants and spiders for super cheap, right? Well, the best day for summer sales is Memorial Day because a lot of people have work off. More decision makers are home than any other day during the summer. And people are in a better mood because they have the day off, they're with family. So if you can get to them before their barbecue starts at 6 p.m., you're gonna have an amazing sales day, right? So the company that I sold for, I don't know the exact numbers, but across the nation, we had branches everywhere. Across the nation, we would sell on average, let's say 1,000 accounts every day. So we had a software that we would get your credit card number, we would type in your name, that would go to a routing system and we'd be able to put you on the route and then the technicians and the secretaries and assistants could see. Awesome software. And it was definitely capable of housing 100 sales every day. Memorial Day comes along. And again, these aren't exact numbers, but let's say Memorial Day came along and we had 1,000 sales in the first 3 hours of the day. And in summer sales, you knock for 10 hours a day. So only 1/3 of the way into the day, we have more sales than we have usually during a day. And the morning is slower than the evening. So sales were ramping up from that point. The database and the software that we had could not handle the amount of sales coming through. So guess what happened? The server crashed. The server crashed and now you have hundreds of employees across the nation very upset for very good reason. This is the day where you can make more money than you ever have. You can continue the momentum of your summer and you can make so much money. And now the system is crashing. This is terrible. This is awful. What is going on? I'd say 95% of summer salesmen in my company with that software hung up their hat for an hour and a half and didn't work during the best time of the year when they could have been making the most money of the year. But guess what 5% did? Maybe even less. There's this guy. I'll just give you his first name. His name's Andrew. He was the one who got me into summer sales in the first place. He's always been an awesome example of hard work and honestly an example of how to make a freak ton of money. The server goes down. He's well aware of it. He's leading everyone. He's like in first or second place for most sales on the day. He's well aware that the software is down because he's using it every 15 minutes, getting sales every 15 minutes while we're all getting sales every hour, hour and a half. So he's well aware that the software is down. He takes his time to reach out into his phone. He texts us, his group, the guys that he's responsible of, which was like anywhere from 16 to 18 of us. And he says, keep knocking, open up the notes on your iPad, and type in the information and keep the ball rolling. And everyone in our branch, except for him and except for me, still quit and argued and complained and missed out on about 2 hours of the best sales day of the year. And Andrew just kept producing. It didn't matter that there was horrible glitches that completely ended the software for a few hours. Nothing you could do about it. He kept knocking, and he got 3 sales during those 2 hours. He made more money than everybody else, and it was competition-based, so the more sales you had, the more prizes you won. So he just blew everyone out of the water because he kept going. The point of the story is, guys, is the summer right now is super slow. We're coming off of an e-commerce boom during the pandemic. We have less people shopping now than over the last couple years. We have more people reselling than ever. We have more competition than ever. We have an economic downturn ensuing. More and more people have less and less money because of interest rates, because of inflation, because of cost of living. People are getting squeezed. People are getting pinched. People have less money to spend on eBay. There are supposed glitches. There is everything in the world knocking at our doors telling us we need to quit. And the Andrews of the world will make more money than they ever have at the expense of other people not trying as hard. It's an unfortunate reality, but we need to be those people that are learning more, that are working more, that are growing more, and that are selling more. I hope that didn't sound super preachy, because the point of this channel is to motivate and to inspire and to be positive and to teach and show that sales can be made, money can be made, and eBay can change your guys' life. Let eBay change your life. Let reselling change your life. We can make more money than we ever have by sticking it out, by learning more about our stores, by learning more about our platforms, by growing our stores, and by working harder than we ever have. This is where people will separate themselves from others. This is where a lot of people will fall and a lot of people will rise up. Wake up every day and be the one that rises up.